The Windsor family's heirloom ring, a symbol of the British monarchy, mysteriously vanishes from the heart of Buckingham Palace. Instantly, all eyes turn to Camilla, a woman once vilified by the world, now suspected even by her own husband. As past promises, love and power intertwine, the truth slowly emerges. But one question lingers: a lost ring can be found again. But what about trust? Mornings at Buckingham Palace typically begin with the gentle melodies of birdsong from the royal gardens, mingling with the steady footsteps of guards in their crimson uniforms. Early sunlight filters through towering stained glass windows, casting shimmering patterns across the meticulously polished marble floors. The palace, as always, exudes an unshakable grandeur, where every detail, from ancient porcelain vases to the measured smiles of courtiers, is perfectly orchestrated. But this morning, that harmony is shattered by an unfamiliar sound, one that defies the usual tranquility. A furious shout echoing from King Charles III's private quarters reverberates through the ancient walls. The roar, sharp and commanding, freezes even the most seasoned servants in their tracks, their hands stilled on silver trays. "Where is the ring?" King Charles's voice carries not just anger, but a rare tremor of panic uncommon for a monarch accustomed to the pressures of the throne. The room, adorned with Persian rugs and oak bookshelves, seems to shrink under the weight of his rage. Outside, courtiers huddle, exchanging anxious glances. No one dares enter except for one man, Sir Edward Langley, the king's private secretary, who has served the royal family for over 3 decades. "Your Majesty," Sir Edward says, bowing low, his voice trembling. Despite his attempt at composure, "we are investigating. The security system shows no signs of intrusion." "No intrusion?" Charles spins around, his piercing blue eyes cold as steel. So the heirloom ring, the treasure of the Windsor dynasty, just sprouted wings and flew away. The ring, a sapphire gem encircled by tiny diamonds set in an intricately engraved gold band, is no mere piece of jewelry. It is a symbol of power, continuity, and the oath every Windsor king swears to the crown. Prince Philip, Charles's father, had clutched it tightly in his final days, as if it were the last thread tying him to the monarchy. Now it has vanished from a secret chamber, safeguarded by the most advanced locks and loyal guards. Chaos erupts within the palace. Security personnel scramble, checking every camera and door. Whispers ripple through the endless corridors like a chilling breeze slipping past crimson velvet curtains. Who would dare do this? Who could access that room? And then a name no one dares speak aloud, but everyone thinks of emerges in furtive glances. Camilla, in her private chambers, just a few corridors away from the commotion. Camilla the Queen stands before a mirror. Her hands tremble as she fastens a pearl brooch to her dress, a wedding gift from Charles. Her face, etched with the lines of time, retains an elegant resolve. But this morning her brown eyes flicker with a vague unease, as if she senses the storm approaching. A rapid knock at the door startles her. "Come in," she says, striving to keep her voice steady. The door opens and Sir Edward enters, his face pale with tension. "Your Majesty," he begins, his voice barely above a whisper, "there's a serious matter. The heirloom ring, it's gone." Camilla's brow furrows, her hand instinctively tightening around the brooch. "Gone? What do you mean? How could it be gone?" Sir Edward hesitates, his gaze averted. "We don't know yet, ma'am, but His Majesty, he's furious. And some are raising questions." "Raising questions?" Camilla echoes, her voice rising slightly sharper now. "What are they saying?" Edward, speak plainly. He bows deeper, as if trying to escape her piercing stare. "Some suspect that you might be involved, Your Majesty." Time seems to stop. Camilla feels her chest tighten, her breath growing heavy. She turns, gripping the edge of the dressing table for balance. In the mirror, she sees herself. A woman once branded the homewrecker by the world, who endured venomous insults, who thought she had overcome it all to stand here beside Charles as queen. But now a single missing ring has dragged her back into the mire of suspicion and prejudice. "Get out," she says, her voice hoarse. "Get out now." Sir Edward hurries away, leaving Camilla alone with her swirling thoughts. She steps to the window, gazing at the garden where she and Charles once strolled, whispering words of love in the days when the world turned against them. She had believed that after everything they had built an unassailable fortress of trust. But now in a single moment, she feels that fortress trembling. In the palace's meeting room, Charles sits at the head of a polished oak table, his hands clasped tightly, his gaze fixed on the glossy surface. Before him lies a stack of documents, security reports, lock schematics, and a list of those with access to the secret chamber. But he doesn't read them. His mind is consumed by a single question: why he recalls the moment he placed the ring in the safe just 2 days ago. Camilla was there standing beside him, smiling softly as he spoke of its significance. It's not just an object, Camilla, he had said. It's a reminder that we live not for ourselves, but for the monarchy. She had nodded, her eyes warm, and he had believed she understood. But now with the ring gone, those memories are clouded by doubt. Camilla has changed lately. She's canceled his schedules without consulting him, appeared on television without advisor approval, and spoken of the monarchy's future with a confidence he's never seen before. He's tried to support her, to give her a voice. But deep down he's afraid she's crossing boundaries, wanting more than the role of queen allows. Charles, a soft voice, breaks his thoughts. Camilla stands at the threshold, her eyes red, but her chin held high. We need to talk. He looks at her, and for a moment his heart aches. He wants to believe her, to hold her, and banish this nightmare. But his eyes, cold and distant, betray a different truth. Fine, he says, his voice hard as stone. Let's talk. And you'd better explain clearly. Camilla steps inside, closing the door behind her. The room grows stifling, as if it's holding tight to secrets neither dares confront. Buckingham Palace, though engulfed in a storm of suspicion, maintains its unyielding facade. The long corridors lined with portraits of Windsor monarchs silently observe the hurried steps of courtiers. Light from crystal chandeliers spills downward, casting interwoven patterns of light and shadow that mirror the turmoil of those within the palace's walls. In the small room where Charles and Camilla face each other, the air is heavy, compressed by unspoken words. Camilla stands near the door, her hands clasped, nails digging into her palms to suppress a tremble. Charles sits behind the oak table, his back rigid, but his eyes no longer burn with the earlier sharpness. Instead, they carry a vague pain mingled with disappointment and confusion. The ring, not merely a treasure, but a tether to his father, the monarchy, and the lifelong duty he's borne, is gone. Charles, Camilla speaks, her voice hoarse but resolute. I didn't take the ring. You have to believe me. Charles doesn't respond immediately. He looks at her, his gaze searching, as if seeking a sign, an explanation to calm the storm within him. But instead of comfort, her words only stir memories of recent months. Her unilateral decisions, unannounced interviews, and the way she spoke of the monarchy's future, with a confidence that made him feel estranged. Believe you, he finally says, his voice low and deliberate, each word weighed carefully. Camilla, do you remember the last time we talked about the ring? You stood there in the secret chamber and said it was an outdated symbol, that the monarchy needed new values. Do you remember? Camilla freezes, memories flooding back like a tidal wave. She had said those words, but not to offend. It was a fleeting moment of candor when she wanted to share her thoughts on how the monarchy could adapt to modern times. But now in Charles's eyes, she sees that those words left a wound she never noticed. I didn't mean it like that, she says, her voice trembling. You know that, Charles. I only wanted to free us from being trapped by the past. Charles rises, walking to the window. He gazes at the royal garden where roses bloom defiantly despite the tempest brewing within the palace. The past, he repeats, his voice bitter. That ring isn't just the past, Camilla. It's my father's oath, my oath, and the oath of those who will follow. It reminds us that the monarchy doesn't belong to any one person. It's a legacy. The ring, with its sapphire gleaming like a midnight sky, once rested on Prince Philip's hand in his final days. Charles vividly recalls as a boy, when his father placed the ring in his palm, his voice stern yet warm. Son, one day you'll understand its weight. Not because it's heavy, but because it carries our history. Back then, Charles saw only its beauty, its sparkle, and smiled innocently. But now, after years of turmoil, he knows the ring is more than jewelry. It's a symbol of endurance, duty, and the sacrifices a king must make. Charles had hoped to pass it to the next generation, a testament that the Windsor dynasty would endure. But now with it gone, he feels the monarchy's very foundation shaking. And what pains him most isn't just the loss. but the name under suspicion, Camilla. Camilla, the woman he loved, fought for against the world. Together, they endured years of public scorn, branded as the destroyer and the unworthy heir. Charles held her hand through long nights when she wept over cruel words, promising he'd never leave her alone. As long as we trust each other, he'd said, no one can tear us apart. But time, like a silent thief, has stolen the purity of those promises. Camilla, once content to stand in his shadow, has stepped into the light. She wanted a voice to prove she was more than Charles's shadow. She began arranging her own schedules, meeting journalists, and speaking of changes she believed the monarchy needed. Charles, though initially supportive, couldn't deny his unease. He feared she was overstepping, challenging the traditional supportive role expected of a queen. Camilla steps closer, her hand lightly touching his shoulder, but he doesn't turn. "Charles," she says, her voice almost pleading, "you can't believe I did this. The ring, it matters to you, and because of that, it matters to me. I would never betray you." Charles turns, his eyes no longer cold, but filled with a profound sadness. "Betray," he repeats, as if the word carries a weight neither wants to face. "Camilla, you don't need to take the ring to betray me. Every time you make decisions on your own, every time you talk about the monarchy as if I'm not enough to lead it, you make me feel like I'm no longer the only one in your heart." His words cut like a knife, piercing Camilla's heart. She steps back, her eyes welling with tears. She wants to scream, to tell him that everything she's done, the interviews, the decisions, was to help him to share the burden he carries. But she can't speak. Not because she lacks an explanation, but because she realizes that in Charles's eyes she's become a stranger. The door swings open, interrupting the tense moment. Sir Edward steps in, his face taut. "Your Majesty, Your Highness," he says, his voice quivering, "the security team has found a clue. A handkerchief, found near the safe. It has the letter C embroidered on it." Charles and Camilla turn, their eyes meeting for a fleeting moment. But instead of comfort, their gazes are filled with doubt and pain. Camilla feels her heart stop. The letter C. It could belong to anyone. But she knows, in Charles's mind and in the minds of those whispering outside, it can only be her. The room falls silent again, but this time the silence isn't just heavy. It's the beginning of a rift, one that both Charles and Camilla know will not be easily mended. Buckingham Palace, despite its splendor, with granite walls and hand-stitched tapestries, feels more stifling than ever. The light from stained glass windows, once illuminating the corridors with vibrancy, now seems dulled, reflecting the somber mood within. The courtiers' whispers, like gentle waves, ripple through every corner of the palace, carrying Camilla's name with increasingly sharp suspicion. Camilla sits alone in her private chamber, her arms wrapped around her slender frame, as if to hold on to the last remnants of warmth. The handkerchief embroidered with C, the clue Sir Edward brought, is like an invisible blade stabbing deep into her heart. She doesn't cry, not because she's strong, but because her tears seem to have run dry after facing Charles's cold stare. The greatest pain isn't the missing ring or the murmurs outside. It comes from the man she loves, the one who was once her only refuge in a life full of storms. She closes her eyes and memories flood back, vivid enough that she can almost hear their laughter from days gone by. It was a summer afternoon at Highgrove, the garden filled with the scent of lavender. Charles, then, still the Prince of Wales, took her hand, leading her through the flower beds, and said in his warm, steady voice, "Camilla, you are my home no matter who turns their back on us." At that time, the public called her the Destroyer. Tabloids screamed vicious headlines, and the royal family saw her as a stain. But Charles was there, shielding her, promising they'd overcome it all together. "As long as we trust each other," he had said, his blue eyes gleaming with resolve. And she believed him. She loved him with all her heart, despite the curses, despite sleepless nights wondering if she was worthy of his love. But now, opening her eyes, Camilla sees only an empty room with portraits on the walls seeming to judge her. Charles is no longer the man who held her hand in Highgrove's garden. He is king, and the weight of the crown has made him distant. The promises of old, once a flame warming her heart, are now mere ashes. Camilla rises, stepping to her dressing table, where a small wooden box holds their mementos. A letter Charles wrote in their early days, a dried flower from Highgrove, and a candid photo of them at a gala. their smiles unbreakable as they gazed at each other. She touches the photo, her fingers trembling. In that moment, she's not the queen, not the accused. She's just Camilla, the woman who loved Charles with everything she had. But memories, however beautiful, can't ease the present pain. Camilla knows Charles is changing, not because he's stopped loving her, but because he's imprisoned by duty. As king, he must uphold the monarchy's image, protect his father's legacy, and face pressure from the public, the press, and advisors who constantly remind him of tradition. Camilla, in her desire to be herself, has unwittingly crossed a line Charles cannot accept. She recalls recent months when she began making decisions independently. Once she canceled Charles's schedule to arrange a tea with environmental activists, a cause she knew he cared about. She thought she was helping, sharing his burden. But when he returned, he looked at her with icy eyes and said, "Camilla, I don't need you to decide for me." She had laughed then, thinking he was just stressed. But now she realizes each decision, however small, planted a seed of doubt in Charles's heart. She wanted a voice to prove she wasn't just Charles's shadow, but that freedom hurt him. He saw her stepping beyond the traditional supportive role, and deep down he feared losing control. The ring's disappearance was merely the final straw igniting doubts both had suppressed. In the meeting room a few corridors away, Charles sits alone clutching an old photo, a snapshot of him and Camilla at a gala years ago. Their smiles in the image are radiant, carefree. But now looking into Camilla's eyes in the photo, Charles sees only a question he dares not answer. "Am I losing you, Camilla?" He knows he's been too harsh, that his cold stare wounded her. But he can't stop. The ring is the monarchy's symbol, and to him, losing it feels like losing the very reason he exists. He needs answers, even if the cost is the heart of the woman he loves. The meeting room door opens softly, and Sir Edward enters, carrying a new stack of documents. "Your Majesty," he says cautiously, "we have another clue. The handkerchief. It's not the Queen's, but there's something unusual. One of the guards saw a stranger near the secret chamber last night." Charles looks up, a spark of hope in his eyes, but also tension. "Who?" he asks, his voice sharp as a blade. Sir Edward hesitates, then replies, "We don't know yet, Your Majesty. But they weren't from the palace." The room falls silent again, but this time it carries a new glimmer. The light of truth beginning to emerge, and of cracks growing ever deeper in the hearts of Charles and Camilla. Buckingham Palace, though fortified by sturdy walls and ornate iron gates, cannot shield itself from the tidal wave of public opinion swelling outside. From London's bustling streets to quiet countryside villages, Camilla's name is once again the centerpiece of gossip. At newsstands, tabloids scream bold headlines: "The Queen in the heist of the century." Is Camilla manipulating the palace? The ring in a power plot. Each headline is a dagger slicing into Camilla's already bleeding heart. Inside the palace, the atmosphere is equally oppressive. Staff lower their eyes as they pass Camilla, their gazes avoiding hers, but their suspicion is unmistakable. Even those once loyal to her, courtiers who smiled during her charity teas, now keep their distance as if she's a blemish to be avoided. Camilla feels it all, every glance, every covert stare, like needles piercing her pride. She sits in a small drawing room where heavy crimson drapes are drawn to block the harsh midday light. On the table lies a stack of newspapers brought by Lady Margaret at Camilla's request. She asked for them not to torment herself but to face reality. She needs to know what the world thinks to understand why in mere days she's become the villain in a story where she was once the heroine. She flips open a paper, her hands trembling. A lengthy article penned by a journalist notorious for attacking the royals paints her as an ambitious woman always seeking to overstep her role. It cites the sea-embroidered handkerchief as irrefutable proof of betrayal, even suggesting Camilla may have orchestrated the ring's theft to spark a crisis, thereby consolidating her power. Camilla laughs, but it's a bitter, joyless sound. Ambition power, she wonders. Does anyone truly understand that all she ever wanted was to be loved, trusted, and herself? Meanwhile, in another corner of the palace, Sir Edward meets with the security team in the surveillance room. On a large screen, the blurry footage of the stranger is replayed, each frame meticulously analyzed. A young officer, face taut with stress, points at the screen. "Sir," he says, "we've zoomed in on the emblem on the cloak. It Seems to be a symbol from an old organization inactive since Queen Elizabeth II's time. We're checking records, but this might not be a simple theft. Sir Edward frowns, unease rising like a tide. An old organization, he repeats. What do you mean? The officer hesitates, then answers, Sir. This emblem was linked to a group of courtiers exiled for opposing the monarchy. If true, this person isn't just after the ring, they might want to destabilize the entire monarchy. Sir Edward falls silent, his eyes fixed on the screen. He knows this information changes everything. Not just the investigation, but the relationship between Charles and Camilla. Yet he also knows that when the truth emerges, the wounds already inflicted may never heal. He stands issuing orders. Keep analyzing. I want everything on this organization and who this person is. Report directly to me before presenting to His Majesty. The officer nods and Sir Edward leaves his steps heavy, as if carrying the palace's entire burden. Buckingham Palace, though still towering in the heart of London, carries an unusual weariness. The sunset's light filters through high windows, casting crimson streaks across the marble floors, as if hiding the invisible cracks spreading within the royal family. In her private chamber, Camilla sits by the window, her gaze distant fixed on the royal garden. The roses still bloom vibrantly, but to her, they're a reminder of days lost. An old letter from Charles, its handwritten words brimming with love, rests on her lap, but she lacks the strength to reread it. The confrontation with Charles in the meeting room has stolen her last shred of hope. His accusations that she craved power, that she crossed boundaries, didn't just hurt her, they made her question if she was wrong to want to be herself. A gentle knock interrupts her thoughts. Camilla takes a deep breath, wipes her eyes quickly and says, "Come in." Sir Edward enters, his face grave, but with a hint of relief. "Your Majesty," he begins, bowing, "I bring good news. We've identified the culprit. It wasn't you. It was Thomas Carver, a former courtier with a grudge against the monarchy. The ring was found in an abandoned house in London's outskirts. He wanted to tear us apart." Camilla looks up, her eyes widening, her heart racing. "Found the ring," she repeats, her voice a mix of hope and skepticism. "So, it's all clear now." Sir Edward nods, but his eyes remain heavy. "Yes, ma'am, Carver was arrested this morning. He confessed his aim was to create a crisis to shake trust within the monarchy. The sea handkerchief was part of his plan, deliberately left to frame you." Camilla falls silent, her hand unconsciously clutching Charles's letter. She should feel relieved, overjoyed that her innocence is proven. But instead she feels only a cold void. The truth has surfaced, but Charles's words, his distant gaze, and the days she was seen as a villain by the palace, all remain like scars that will never fade. "Thank you, Edward," she says, her voice calm but hollow. "Inform His Majesty and leave me alone." Sir Edward bows and exits, leaving Camilla with her chaotic thoughts. She rises, stepping to the dressing table where she keeps a photo of her and Charles at a gala years ago. Their smiles in the image are radiant, but now it only breaks her heart. The truth may have cleared her name, but trust, the most precious thing between her and Charles, cannot be reclaimed. In the meeting room, Charles sits alone, holding the newly returned ring. The sapphire glints under the light, but to him it no longer holds the beauty of legacy. It's a reminder of his mistakes, of how he let doubt obscure his love for Camilla. Sir Edward has just reported everything. About Thomas Carver, his plot, and the handkerchief deliberately left to frame Camilla. Charles listened, but each word was a hammer shattering what little pride he had left. He rises, walking to the window, looking out at the royal garden. He recalls the moment he doubted Camilla, the moment he let accusations slip from his lips. He was wrong and he knows it, but how to make amends? How to face the woman he loves after pushing her into the darkness of suspicion? A knock sounds and Sir Edward enters again. "Your Majesty," he says cautiously, "the Queen has been informed. But she wishes to be alone." Charles nods, but his heart twists. He knows Camilla doesn't just need time. She needs an apology, an acknowledgement that he was wrong. But he is king, and the crown's ego makes him hesitate. He grips the ring, feeling its weight, not just from gold and gems, but from what it represents: duty, legacy, and the sacrifices he and Camilla have endured. "Prepare a press conference," Charles says, his voice low but firm. "I want the public to know the truth. Camilla is innocent, and I won't let her name be tarnished further. Outside, Buckingham Palace glows under the sunset, but within those bearing the monarchy's weight wrestle with their own hearts. Camilla in her chamber gazes at the garden, wondering if she can forgive Charles or if their love is forever altered. Charles in the meeting room holds the ring tightly, knowing he must face Camilla, but unsure if she'll still listen. The truth is out, but like a double-edged sword, it doesn't just sever accusations, it leaves deep wounds, wounds only time, or courage, can heal. Buckingham Palace, bathed in the pale morning light, wears its timeless grandeur. Royal flags flutter in the breeze, and the brass trumpets of the guards sound steadily as if proclaiming that all is well, that the monarchy stands firm. But behind the granite walls, the air is thick, a reminder that though the truth is revealed, the wounds remain silent but sharp. This morning, a press conference is held in the palace's grand hall, where portraits of Windsor monarchs hang high silent witnesses to history. Journalists armed with cameras and notebooks crowd the vast space, their sharp eyes eager to extract every detail from the faces of King Charles III and Queen Camilla. The public, after days of fervor fueled by vicious headlines, awaits an explanation. A story to soothe or ignite further debate? Charles stands at the podium, his navy suit impeccably tailored, but his hands gripping the podium's edge betray his tension. Beside him, Camilla stands tall, her pearl silk dress accentuating her elegance, but her smile is a fragile mask. They are king and queen, symbols of unity, but their eyes don't meet, as if an invisible wall divides them. Ladies and gentlemen, Charles begins, his voice deep and clear, carrying a monarch's authority. These past days, Buckingham Palace has faced a great trial. The heirloom ring, a symbol of the Windsor legacy, was stolen. But today I stand here to declare that the culprit has been caught. Thomas Carver, a former courtier with a grudge against the monarchy, schemed to disrupt and divide us. He failed. The ring has been returned, and Queen Camilla, unjustly suspected, is entirely innocent. Murmurs ripple through the crowd of journalists. Some nod, scribbling quickly, while others exchange skeptical glances. Charles pauses, his gaze sweeping the room as if daring anyone to challenge the truth. But deep within, he knows these words, however powerful, cannot undo what he's done to Camilla. Camilla stands beside him, her smile intact, but her heart feels crushed. Charles's declaration is necessary, deserved, but it comes too late. The days of suspicion, of being seen as a villain, and above all his cold stare in the meeting room, have left scars that won't heal. She glances at him briefly, seeing his attempt to make amends. But is it enough to mend what's broken? A journalist raises a hand, voice sharp. Your Majesty, why was a handkerchief with C found near the safe? Was there any internal confusion in the palace? Charles's grip tightens, but his voice remains calm. The handkerchief was part of Carver's plan to frame the Queen. Security has confirmed it doesn't belong to her. We were manipulated, but the truth is now clear. Camilla feels a surge of emotion. She wants to shout, to tell the world she's not just innocent, but a victim of a cruel game. But she stays silent, as she's learned through years as queen. She bows her head slightly, her smile unwavering, though inside she's shattering. The press conference ends, and as the grand hall's doors close, Charles and Camilla step out, maintaining the perfect distance of a royal couple. Courtiers bow, cameras flash, but behind the scenes no one speaks. They enter a private corridor, and for the first time that day they're alone. Camilla, Charles says, his voice low and hesitant, I'm sorry, I was wrong to doubt you. Camilla stops, turning to face him. Her eyes, once alight with passionate love, now hold only exhaustion. Charles, she says, her voice soft but sharp, your apology can't erase what I've been through. You didn't just doubt me. You pushed me out of your life as if I were a threat. I stood here loving you, trusting you, but you chose the monarchy over me. Charles opens his mouth to argue but closes it. He knows she's right. He let the crown's duty blind his love, and now, looking into Camilla's eyes, he sees he's lost what mattered most. I don't want to lose you, he whispers, his voice breaking. Give me a chance to make it right. Camilla is silent, her gaze drifting past him to the royal garden outside the window. She recalls the days they held hands when their love was strong enough to defy the world, but now that love is a faint trace obscured by doubt and hurt. Charles, she says, her voice calm but cold, will go on for the monarchy, for duty. But my heart, it's no longer whole. Buckingham Palace remains magnificent, its granite walls and fluttering flags, a testament to the monarchy's endurance. The heirloom ring rests again on Charles's hand, proclaiming the dynasty's longevity. But human hearts, unlike stone or gold, don't mend easily. In his study, Charles gazes at the garden, his eyes lingering on Camilla's silhouette on the balcony. No longer angry, no longer doubting, only the quiet regret of a man who loved, who hurt, and who no longer knows how to return. On the balcony, Camilla takes a deep breath, letting the breeze carry away painful memories. She knows that even if the monarchy overcomes new threats, she and Charles will forever bear the scars of the past. They will continue for duty, for legacy, but the love that once burned brightly is now a dim spark buried beneath the weight of power. What are your thoughts on this story? Share your opinions below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more royal tales.